everybody, we are back with another episode of Tales from the Tavern. I hope you all are doing well tonight. We have a fantastic group of all new guests to our stream, so welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for coming on and hanging out tonight. We are going to go around and have everybody introduce themselves so that you can all get to know them, and then we will open the floor up for questions. So Misha, we're going to start with you.
Oh boy. Hi, I'm Misha, and I am on the podcast Dice Carnival. I've been playing TTRPGs for a little less than 2 years and also consider myself a rookie DM. Also, this is Sniffles. I love him a lot.
We all love Sniffles now, too. We all just met Sniffles a few minutes ago, and we are all in love.
Sniffles became our mascot just like that.
It was instant.
Mm-hmm. I'm Casualty CDG, but you can call me Gary. I'm a retired child crimes and human trafficking detective turned tabletop titan and improv comedian. I'm one half of Fresh Out the Box. Johananon down there, over there, is my co-host. He's the Forever DM, and we play every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. Central.
Awesome. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Johananon, the board game guru and game master extraordinaire. I've been a dungeon master for 20 plus years, and I've played, I've run over 30 different systems, lots of games, lots of experience, and I love games.
Awesome. And Ty, we didn't mean to skip over you, but we will come back to you if you would like to introduce yourself.
Not a problem. My name's Ty. I'm Dungeon Mr. Ty on Twitter, but I am also the founder of the brand new Adventure Slaying Productions indie game company. We are building strangely new things for spring release. And I'm also a forever DM who's gotten to play a lot more lately. And my history probably goes back 20 years further than anybody at this table, maybe. Maybe that will come up later in our discussion. But very happy to be here. I do also sometimes stream with Time Lord's wife on Twitch. She's a wonderful, gracious hostess for many of us who are content providers.
Awesome. And Todd.
Hello, everyone. Luna, thank you so much for having us on. My name is Todd Moonbounce. I am one half of the Dungeon Jedi Masters, a podcast and much more for the Star Wars 5th edition fan conversion. We do podcasts, as mentioned, live plays, many more things just to help supplement that system. And beyond that, also, I stream, mostly DM, running other systems as well, recently getting into Savage Worlds, one of my favorites, and playing in some games as well. Just enjoying the hobby, definitely.
Yeah, Savage Worlds is a super fun system. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. Well, thank you all for coming on and hanging out tonight. If this is your first time joining us in chat tonight, you guys are responsible for asking all the questions. So basically, if you have a question for anybody or everybody in our group tonight, feel free to drop that right in the chat, and I have a moderator that will make sure that I see it so we can get a chance to talk about it. And we also have, if you've been here for a little while and you've got some channel points racked up, we have the Ask My Question Next that you can go ahead and use, and that will bump your question up to the next one in the queue, so you don't have to wait in line for your question to be answered, and make sure we have time to answer it tonight. So feel free to use that. That's available 3 times every night, so you can, drop some channel points on that. The Games Tavern, thank you for coming in with your raid. I hope your mini painting stream was fantastic. We're happy to have you. Thank you all for coming in. And speaking of the Games Tavern, their arrival is right on cue. I am partnering with the Games Tavern this weekend and next weekend to help raise money for a veterans charity called Operation Supply Drop. If you are not familiar with them, they do a lot of work around helping veterans, family members, both active duty and veterans. They have programs that can help with social connectivity, professional development, helping them transition back into civilian life, and then also community service. So, they do a lot of great work around that. And tonight, if you make a contribution, there are incentivized donations. So I definitely recommend checking that out. !charity to get the link. You can see that down below me, down here, down at the bottom of the screen, they have raised over $3,000 so far. Their goal is to hit $4,000 by the end of the month. Let's see if we can get them a little bit closer tonight. And we should be able to see if we can raise a little bit of money. It will pop up. Apache, I see that you tried to use it. I'm not sure. I will look into that in a minute, why that didn't come up. But it will also auto-cycle through. But there are incentives if you donate. There are Shard Tabletop bundles. If you have used Shard Tabletop before, they are fantastic. 5e system. Virtual tabletop system. So there are bundles and subscriptions available. There are Reaper miniature gift certificates available, D&D Beyond books, D&D digital dice packs, overhead games, epic character avatar creator. So definitely check that out. If that's something that you're interested in donating to, we would love to have your support. So feel free to check that out. Because we have a whole bunch of first-time guests here, none of you have been asked this question, and this is the one that I typically like to start off with when I have a bunch of new people on the stream. And it's a very important one to me because I have very strong feelings about this. When you play with physical dice at the table, do your dice have to match?
No. Long story short, no. I only got this one giant metal dice. I don't have a set to go with it, but I like breaking my tables, so
Oh, well,
and then I have this D10 that's inside, two D10s inside each other right here. I don't have a set of those. I mix and match.
I will say that I like to throw a bunch of dice, and so it's hard to have like one matching set when you're throwing a bunch of dice. But I also have metal dice like Jahan, so if I'm I'll stick to like all silver sets of dice for a character, or all like golds and browns if I'm rolling. So maybe not an exact match, but I do color code what I'm throwing for my character, for sure.
Well, there you go.
As a graphic designer by day, and just maybe generally a little anal retentive in that regard, definitely want my dice to match. So I'll have a few sets that I love to try and seek out. I've got a couple sets. Two of my favorites are some Chesic sets, and I've considered trying to get the extra D6s to have that 46 set to go along with them, your standard character creation. But yeah, I have a few of them with me, but definitely like to have a match on my end.
So basically, in most of the times I play, unless I can't find the set of dice at the moment, I have only one set of dice that I use. They're handmade, one of a kind, don't worry, they're balanced. And I just like having like one set of dice that's like super special. And it just feels like it's unique and no one else can get it, and it just warms my heart. So I use those all the time.
I feel super called out. I didn't even think about this question until you asked it. But yeah, I totally use full sets of one die for what I'm using them for. Except this is a good opportunity. This is my game science die from when I was like 15.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of the couple of dice that I still have left. And it's my Dungeon Master die. So I use it when I roll my D20s. I use it with my character D20 as like an advantage, disadvantage die, or just to give the mojo to my other die. But the other answer is yes, I do absolutely use a specifically designated set.
I am the same. I have and if one of my dice have to go to Dice Chill, the other might be contaminated, so I have to get rid of the whole set and start with a different set. So, yeah, mine absolutely have to match.
Nice box, Gary.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's beautiful.
That's really cool.
I ended up finding an antique 3-tiered folding sewing kit, and it is now my die kit. So that's how
fantastic.
That's how I separate all my die. So I have my different metal ones and my different gemstone ones and everything, so they don't get all banged up in there.
So Luna, off of this question, matching sets. So Gary, do you sort yours by set or by size, and
So-
everybody else?
They're sorted by set and also by material, so that I don't have I've got all the plastic ones together, and then the metal ones together, and the gemstone ones together, so I don't get any of them cracked or scratched up or anything.
Nice, yeah.
I stick mine in different bags for no reason, and I use whichever ones I can find at the time.
Grab bag, yeah.
Because I am chaos.
But you admit it, and that's what's okay.
I'm aware of it, yeah.
My
like to add
set
something
has
real
its own
quick.
special little bag, and I love it because it makes little jingling noises.
That's very cool. I like it.
Since we're on the topic of dice, I want to throw this out there because I just learned about it. One of my students gave me this die, just as as the apple for the teacher. And I didn't know what it was. And then I put a picture of it on social media, and someone looked at it and said, "Hey, you want me to find out what that die is?" And I said, "Sure. I know it's a 32-sided.
I saw that post. Yeah,
Did you see that?
I did.
Yeah. In Critical Role.
No, but I saw a post about it at one point,
Asking about-
and
okay.
yeah, it was really cool.
Never
Yeah, it
seen
turns
it.
out this is an antique Czechoslovakian
Oh,
gambling and fortune-telling die. And it's an antique. Yeah,
That's awesome.
what's it made from? Crystal?
it's glass.
Wow.
Ooh.
So, have you made an antique Czechoslovakian fortune-telling 32-sided die system yet?
No, not yet. But
That would
now
be
that
on
you
my
mentioned it-
immediate to-do list, just to try to get those dice back into everybody's hands.
Yeah,
I know it's crazy.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how haunted is that dice?
I wonder. I seriously wonder. And
That's how
with
you
the-
get ghosts.
Yeah, the variety of good and bad things that go into my life, it's probably around 8. No.
Honestly, if I were to have any ghosts around my dice, I'd like the Czechoslovakian gambling ghosts.
Fair.
yeah.
I feel like they'd be nice company.
I'm going to write this down.
Yeah, I can already see us running into a Czechoslovakian gambling ghost in the next session.
Yeah, watch out, guys.
Oh, that sounds
I wanna hear
amazing. I
about it.
think that's a great plan. I would love to encounter one of those in one of my games. Hint, hint, anybody who DMs for me in the future. I am a separate my dice by the set person. So like, this is a set. This is a set. This is a set. This is a set. And then back here I have the startings of what will become my dice storage, but I have a set in here. This is actually my Jasper's Game Day fundraiser set, but these are spice jars. I got the idea from it was Nekla the Druid, I think, who gave me the idea about putting them into spice jars and then mounting a spice storage rack on my wall. So that's what I am.
That's kind of an aesthetic, though.
Yeah.
Especially if you were to name each of your sets of dice after a different spice or an herb and put the labels
That
on
would
there.
be really fun.
There
Yeah.
you go, yeah.
It's dope. I like that.
Yep. Yeah. All right. We did get another question coming off of that from Vertrox Nightblood. So Vertrox wanted to know, do you have specific dice that you use for certain characters?
I've done stuff like that in the past. I had a transmutation wizard once upon a time, and I bought a set of tiny dice for when he shrinks stuff. And when you're small, if I shrunk myself, I rolled the tiny, itty bitty. I think I have some around here, but they're real small. And I had some giant dice too for when he is big.
I
So I've done
love
stuff
that
like
so much. That is dedication, and that
That's
brings me so much joy.
And it's
man.
just like that. It's about the same size.
It's like the travel, what's the game with the dice in the bubble?
Yahtzee.
Oh.
Trouble.
Trouble.
Trouble, yeah, trouble. Like the travel size, like that. I haven't. I've only played, I think, one game. I've done a few recently. Now that things have opened back up, but I've only had one main character, and I didn't necessarily have special dice for that. And then I mostly DM, so whatever I can get those pretty dice on Foundry. Foundry is my VTT go-to, and And Dice So Nice is fantastic module for that. So you get to build some pretty sharp dice on there. And but yeah, I haven't really thought of specific dice for character.
When I was a younger man and I didn't have a mortgage, whenever I would make a new character, I would go buy a set of dice. And so that would kind of be the dice for that character. But I don't know, maybe a few weeks in, if those dice went to dice jail, I'd just go back to my favorite dice again. But there is something about a new character and a new campaign and a new group of folks where it's kind of fun to get a new set of dice as well.
So I haven't really gotten a set of dice for a specific character in forever because I just kind of decided I'm not going to hoard dice. I'm going to have like one specific set that I really like. However, recently I've just been getting super attached to a druid of mine, and I've caught myself looking for dice specifically for them. And you know what? I think it's finally time. I think I can treat them to a set of dice because if I'm falling this hard, they deserve it.
Not to call you out, Misha, but as a new player, but you said you're not going to hoard dice and just give it time.
Yeah.
I'm sure the rest of us can
Well,
say.
here's the thing. At some point, I had like 20 sets of dice, and I decided I want less. So I started giving them away to friends like this and stuff like that. So now, so basically for a while, everyone I played with who didn't own a set of dice, I just gave them one of mine. So now I have like a very specific set of rules of like what matches my personal standards of dice I want. Because my thing is I buy nice. I like to buy nice things. I like to buy the upscale things, but I have a college student budget, so I don't buy them very often.
There you go.
See, I buy dice with the intention of giving them to players, but I'm a grumpy dice dragon, so I sleep on my pile of dice.
I was going to say you have to be careful when you give away your dice because the dice gods actually smile upon that, because the last time I gave away a set of dice, I ended up being gifted in a Secret Santa a set of my very first set of metal dice, which so I was like, I tried to be nice. I tried to give away a set of dice and I got dice back, but they were just a nice metal set instead. So yeah.
That's a good message. That's a good message for us.
Yes. Yeah, so it's okay to give away your dice.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to make people happy. Just be like, you're playing at the table. Hey, you need to borrow a set of dice? Okay. What's your favorite color? Rummages through the bag.
Yeah.
Here you go. And then there's a back and forth of, do I really get to keep this? Yes, it is yours. You don't have to do this, but I want to.
But it's so
so fun.
to let other people touch your dice.
I'm with you, Jai. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's dangerous. Unless if you're giving them away, I suppose it's fine. But if they're just on the table and other people are like, oh, what's that? And they grab it and you're like,
oh, no.
Ooh. That's how you enrage the dice gods.
Yeah. People who are regulars here have heard me talk about this person before, but there is a player that in my home group that's what he will do is like, he'll start reaching across the table. And finally one day I just went, no, do not, grabbed him right on the wrist. I'm like, do not touch my dice.
Oh gosh, you'd hate our home games. Basically what ends up happening is all the dice keep kind of switching around to everybody so often that at the end we basically have a pile of everyone's dice in the middle of the table, and then at the end of the game we got to pick out whose is who.
Oh man.
The good old dice flurry.
Yeah. I don't mind, like, if somebody is like, oh, I need a D6, can I borrow one? Fine, yeah, sure, absolutely. Just don't take them without asking first. So
yeah.
So on the subject of giving people dice, I had a birthday party here like 2 years ago. I guess it was just pre-COVID, and my wife made a beholder piñata, and it was like this big around. I'm a large man. I'm 6'3", and so this thing is like bigger than a beach ball, and It was made of like 5 or 10 layers of paper mache. So it was rock hard solid. And we had a halberd, and we instead of stuffing it with candy, we stuffed it with all these different sets of dice. Like, I'm talking like 30 different sets of colored dice. We just dumped them all in there. We go outside with the halberd, and we've got the blindfold on, and we're swinging at it, and it's just taking full on grown man halberd over the head swings. We're blasting it, like the tentacles are flying off, the eyes are popping off the beholder, but its dome face is still there. And finally, when it burst open, I guess, a little bit of foresight would have been to put a tarp down, because then dice went all over the lawn. And so we're like trying to find the brown and green die are like really hard to pick out of the grass. We all went
and then
back
the
inside
D4s too, the daggers.
Yeah.
In that moment, hear me out. You just save the rest for Easter.
There you go. Oh my god, a dice Easter egg hunt. That would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had somebody in chat. It was Gallant Knight Games asked the question, why do you think gamers focus on dice so much? Which I think is a really good question.
Hi, Alan. That's our friend Alan Barr from Gallant Knight Games. I think people. I don't know. I saw his question earlier, so I was thinking about it already, which is why I'm like ready to go.
Perfect.
But I think it's just you want something of your character in to bring to the world that you can like touch. It's a tangible representation of a character. I got a mini of like one of my favorite characters as a gift. And we don't even use minis. We do theater of the mind usually. And so it's just nice to have a physical like totem of your character.
Yeah, because you're using the dice all the time. So you're going to associate your character almost with the dice you're using for them, especially if you use different sets of dice for different characters.
Yeah, my first set of dice, when I first got into the hobby, I actually just went, I was like, all right, I'm going to buy a set. I got 7... it was one of each color for each dice, kind of a rainbow set, and that was my, if you guys remember fidget spinners a couple years ago, dice became my fidget spinner. I would just roll them on my desk because it was so much fun throughout the day, and still I have other sets now that kind of take precedence over those, but I'll always remember that set, and for whatever reason, I don't tie them to my characters, as I said a little bit ago, but just dice in general. I can't explain why I'm constantly looking at dice I want to buy. It's just really got to stay reeled in.
This makes me think of my first set. My first set of dice. I went to the game store. I had to pick them individually. There were no sets. You didn't go back then and buy pre-made sets of dice that were the same color. You went to the jar and you rifled through them and you picked one of each kind, of which there were only 6, not 7, and then you took your little treasure home, and that was it. But they are like little gemstones, Also, they're kind of the like reminder that this is treasure that we're dealing with as well in our adventures.
I was gonna say, what was I gonna say?
My bad.
Yeah, I just somebody in chat called me out. Yeah, Luna, why do you keep looking at dice? I don't know. I was one of the people, so I got my first set of dice when I started playing my first campaign, which was back in 2008. And from there, starting in 2012 is when I went to my first PAX East, because PAX East started in 2011. And so 2012, I went to my first PAX East, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many people here that sell dice. And so I was like, well, I'm going to get a set as a souvenir. And then it kind of became a tradition. So like every year I'd go to PAX East and I would pick out a set that was like representative of a character that I was playing. So like I ended up with a glittery gold set for a treasure hunter character that I was playing one time. And then last year I wasn't even playing because I did get to go in 2020. It was the very last thing that happened right before everything locked down. And so last year I got a set, and it was the first time I'd gotten a set that had like irregular shaped dice. So like the D6 isn't a cube. It's like, not a cone, but kind of a cone type shape. And so, yeah, it's kind of like that. And so that's when I was kind of like, oh man. And then of course everybody was home during COVID. And so Kickstarter was like my go-to, like, oh, that's a really nice set. I think I'll back that one on Kickstarter. And then of course, like we hit the holidays and all the Kickstarters start getting fulfilled. And I'm like, oh crap, I have a lot of dice and I don't even play in-person games right now. So, yeah, like I have I backed the the Keyfish crit dice from Greenleaf Geek. And so I have those sitting on my desk, and, all kinds of that stuff. So that's how I just kept building and building and building. So yeah.
No shame in that.
No.
My partner is similar. She likes to. She goes on Kickstarter. She just bought some with liquid in them.
Oh, those look so cool.
They look cool. Some of them were really good, but I think someone like the D4, I think was kind of like the liquid was kind of meh because it's a weird shape. But yeah, she just loves dice. So
yeah, snow globe dice are I feel like people and whoever is manufacturing them is still working on perfecting their art. So I'm kind of looking at them, but if I were to ever buy them, I feel like I'd hold off a little bit longer and also see what the next trend is.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It's nice to see the dice maker like little trends on Instagram and stuff like that, because it goes from inclusions to Petri to like the snow globe dice. And I think right now is the sort of thing where you make like an inner part of the dice and then you put it in the resin and then you cast around it. So you can have like a really cool pattern on the inside. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, I got mine right in the middle of Petri time.
A lot of those Petri dye are really cool. We have a friend who does like snake bone and red dye, so it looks like
they're really cool.
They look like dragon bone fragments, basically. They're super slick looking.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's so many amazing looking dice out there. So moving on a little, shifting from dice to just nerd in general, Patchster0730, aka Patch, hi Patch, would like to know, what was your nerd awakening moment? As in, what was the first time you appreciated something considered nerdy and decided to continue with it?
So, yeah, I mean, I can't remember. It's been my whole life since day one. So my mom is I like to call her a closet nerd, because I think she would love comics and she would love all that stuff if she got into it. But she's like a big fan of Marvel. She's the one that got me into Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons in the first place. Because when I was younger, she got me the starter set for 3rd edition for Christmas. I don't know, she thought I'd like it. So pretty much my whole life.
There you go.
So I believe this was in 2013. I was either 11 or 12, and I used to have this little iPod, and they had the free Disney Channel app. So I would go on there, and when no one was looking, I just hide underneath my table at home and watch the free episodes they had on there. And it wouldn't really be much to me. Like, I loved Phineas and Ferb. But then one day, discovered Gravity Falls, and that changed my life forever. I got so into the show that I started actually looking into it online, and from there I joined online communities and then got into other stuff, and from there became a massive nerd. But yeah, that was my fate.
I feel like my life has been a nerd roller coaster. Like, I was into comics when I was in like elementary and junior high, but then comic books started to become really cool with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and with all the X-Men movies. And so it stopped kind of being a nerdy thing. Like, I was into Harry Potter, and then Harry Potter got really cool. It wasn't for nerds anymore. And then sort of in 2007, was the first time I ever got a role-playing game. A friend of mine bought me Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, and he brought it over to my house and was like, he's like, hey, I saw this on discount at the store, and I thought it might be funny if we played this game. And we were like, that sounds, let's play this game. Haha, let's see how nerdy this game is. And by like 20 minutes in, we were like, okay, seriously, like, how do we remake characters but better? And when are we going to play this game again? And my parents were very strict, suburban, right-wing, well-to-do folk, and they were like, my mom said verbatim, like, "Are you guys seriously going to play that fucking loser game in my front dining room all day?" And I just remember that like moment of shock, like it's a game. Like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm getting like trash talked by my mom for playing this game in the house. I think something struck with me at that moment that was like, this is my game. Like, fuck my parents, right? This is my game.
I don't know. I'm going back down memory lane all the way to the beginning. Now you got to realize I might look like I'm 22, but I'm actually. No. I predate video games. Okay, so video games and bad superhero movies and inconsistent movie to movie depictions of the plot and the stories and the lore, and also I lived in Idaho, and so I had nothing going for me until middle school when my friends and I were like Michael Moorcock and Robert Howard and Conan and Elric, and reading the fantasy novels and this Lord of the Rings thing and The Hobbit and stuff like that. It's like, okay, cool. I watched Star Trek. I was never a Trekkie. I was there when Star Wars came out. I was never a huge Star Wars guy. I just don't, I liked it, and then I moved on. But the fantasy stuff stuck, and then came something that let me hold on to it and create what I wanted, because I couldn't get it any other way. And that was that was middle school. So 14, 15 years old. And then from there, but then I also was raised by very conservative parents, and I went through the Satanic Panic hardcore. Like, I had to quit playing, I wasn't allowed to listen to Kiss, all those sorts of things. And I think, I don't know, somehow maybe that also kind of anchored it for me. Like, I'm not letting this go, and I'm going to teach my kids, and we're still going to have fun even if you guys can't,
For me,
That's such. Oh yeah, go ahead.
For me, I think it's tough to say that, like, what was my defining moment. I think I kind of, maybe got in there and then rode with mainstream, the X-Men animated series, like, fell in love with that. And then it just, that was definitely a driving factor in things. And then just throughout growing up, was a band nerd through high school, and then eventually picked up guitar. So, became cool to be a musician in that regard. And within really just the last couple years, the time I've been playing tabletops, I'd say that's been another, maybe milestone in my nerd life, if you will. And I think we all can say that it's definitely gained a lot of traction, mainstream wise and stuff. But I think there's still a little bit of a taboo's the right word, but surrounding D&D and other games like that. When I introduce new people to it, they have a blast, and that's super super awesome to me. And that's one thing that's really grounded me into the hobby, I think, is how much fun it is and what it can do to bring people and communities together. And I've grown so much as a person within the community because of how open the community is and things like that as well. So, yeah.
It's honestly so, like, from your description of how it was during the Satanic Panic, it was so different for me because I only started playing less than 2 years ago. But beforehand, it was several years of me wanting to learn to play, because it seemed to be the thing that all the cool kids were doing, and that it was everywhere. And I was just too nervous to go in and start learning to play until my friend is just like, what do you want to play? I want to play this. Okay, show up at this house. Here's a character sheet. You're a level 4 spore druid. Go. What?
So my brother is he's a high school art teacher, and he runs the Dungeons and Dragons club after school. And the first year, they had like 12 kids show up. And so he was game mastering half of them, and they had one student game mastering the other half. This is his second year doing it now, and they have 35 kids that show up every other week.
Awesome.
And they've had to turn away 20 kids because they just don't have enough game masters. And it's just this insane turnout where, like, when we have the Satanic Panic, right? I know that my parents would have been on that side to force me to quit playing. I know it for a fact, and it's amazing. It's just crazy how far it's come. Ty, there was something else you had said about tabletop games kind of giving you that power to control and morph and build the world and the lore in a way that nothing else allows you to. I remember in 4th grade, my friend Ben had a birthday party, and it wasn't like, we didn't go bowling, we didn't go do laser tag. We went to his house, and he had all the Star Wars encyclopedias. all the characters, all the planets, all the weapons. And we all had pieces of paper, and we just passed around the books and wrote down what planet we would be from, what weapon we would have, what ship we would have, who our characters would be. And we were in 4th grade, so we didn't know what we were doing. We were just doing it, right? We were world building and role playing, and we didn't have the tools or we didn't know how yet. So I think it's been there, right? I think it's just ingrained in a kid's imagination. These types of games they're almost inherent in a human. I think there's something alluring about them to me.
Hey, storytelling is like
pretend.
Yeah.
Storytelling is one of the oldest traditions of humanity. It's what caused us. It's how we passed down knowledge in the past. But yeah, listen to all you guys. I mean, some of that you guys are saying, very beautiful. I loved it. It was great. But yeah, you guys were taking me down memory lane too, because I'm like, man, I remember like Beastmaster and Conan and like Dark Crystal, and like I really don't know when it started. I remember the animated Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies were huge. Yeah. You know what? Maybe that was it.
The D&D cartoon.
Oh god, I have the entire collector's edition of the D&D cartoon, and I watched it recently. But yeah, no, I remember my teacher made us read The Hobbit in elementary school, and I think that might have sunk it for me. That was it. It was great. And also, yeah, Bisha, so happy that you had this access and this availability to do it, and you didn't have to face the stigma.
Yeah.
I think there's such a dichotomy.
Yeah, definitely.
There's such a dichotomy in today's availability of entertainment options. On the one hand, you have such there's such a massive offering. It's too much to keep up with for me, and I limit myself to Game of Thrones and all the anime and all that kind of stuff. When I grew up, I really couldn't stand how they changed the Batman actor every year, and how the one movie didn't follow the other movie, and all those kinds of things. And today it's like there's the whole franchise built around keeping the storyline consistent, and it's so amazing. But it's also very overwhelming. Like, we have so many options today. I don't know how
the nerd renaissance. It's a beautiful time to be alive.
You got to retrain yourself to like filter out, okay, what do I actually want to pay attention to?
Yeah. I was really late coming into my like nerddom, if you will. My parents growing up, like, my family wasn't a family of gamers. I didn't know any gamers. None of my friends owned, well, I shouldn't say none. Like, one of my friends owned a Nintendo, the original Nintendo. And like I picked up an Atari at a yard sale for $10 with like a pile of games this high. But it was nothing big. I remember when I don't remember how old, getting a Super Nintendo for Christmas. You have to share it with your little sister. And we only were allowed to play 3 games. And then once I beat those 3 games, that was it. Like, I never really picked up another video game. One of my cousins tried to let my parents install Doom on their Windows 95 computer. That didn't last very long. My parents were like, yeah, no. So I think the first time that I realized that and it was like this, I might be a nerd, was when I was in high school, and I was like, I really want to get a tattoo of a dragon on my ankle with the wings open around my ankle and the tail going down onto my foot. Here it is. I am 40 years old. I still don't have that tattoo, and I still really want to get it. But I think that was when I was really like, I might be kind of a nerd. And then when I was in college, I had an apartment with 5 roommates, and the one that I shared my bedroom with, she was big into like D&D, and we had a PlayStation in our room and all of that stuff. And that was when I started really getting into some of it. And then I married a gamer, and that was it. So when we got divorced, I kept gaming, and that was the end of that. So yeah.
It's funny because everybody's a nerd about something. Anyway, we just get teased for it because it has to do with dragons and elves or whatever. But you're also a nerd with your fantasy sports team, which I also do. You're also a nerd if you're really into science. You're also a nerd if you're really into hunting or whatever. It's just
Did you ever see that comic? I think it was like a Foxtrot comic where the kid in it was playing. It was fantasy football, but he was playing like with D&D miniatures.
Haven't seen that, but that sounds
I'm gonna have
amazing.
to hunt it down.
Love
It was
that.
so funny because I was like, "Oh my god!" And somebody walks into the room in the last panel and was like, "I don't think you understand what fantasy football is."
Yeah, tell
I
that
think
to
they
the guys
understand
over at Blood Bowl.
perfectly.
yeah, right.
That reminds me of a College Humor video that was like showing how nerds and jocks are basically the same thing, just for different topics.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I was in, and Jahan also. Jahan was the captain of the wrestling team in high school, and I was a football player. All through junior high and all through high school, we were both just jock nerds. And like when people, I remember all the time kids in high school like, "Hey man, we're gonna have this kegger party this weekend. You want to come kegging?" And be like, "No, I'm gonna go
Bro, I
home
gotta
and-
paint these Warhammer figures.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play a shit ton of GoldenEye or like Halo
Gotta keep
just
that
came out."
virginity nice and intact. Gotta stay pristine.
Yeah, I was able
Well
to be a
into my
nerd
20s.
jock my whole life. And then same thing when I went into law enforcement. It's like everyone there is like this, not everyone, right? But generalization. There's a bunch of alpha male guys in law enforcement. And then there's me. And I'm just like, yeah, bro, I don't want to go to the bar afterwards. And I don't want to hang out. I just want to go home and play my Dungeons and Dragons still. And so it is this weird, it puts you in this weird position where it's like, you're right, jocks are nerds and nerds are jocks. But there's almost this weird like pull that you feel against yourself. Like, am I supposed to go be a jock with the jock guys or go be a nerd with the nerd guys? And I guess that's everyone's personal struggle of, finding yourself or the game has helped me find myself. Let me say that much.
Yeah.
Preach, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nah, Dungeons and Dragons is just starting to play TTRPGs has definitely helped me like explore my gender identity and stuff and kind of come to terms that even if I had been like doubting it for years, sort of being able to explore it by kind of over time just kind of testing out different characters and seeing how I felt with it. That was my way of just figuring things out in a safe place, and it's really done a lot for me.
I think even whether it's something personal like that, Misha, or just something for myself is I've played characters that are opposite of my gender and whatnot, and I think it also helps you kind of sympathize or empathize with other people as well. And I think it's it grows your own understanding of other people, and it's such a great way to facilitate that.
Well, and I think there's such a reason based, like you're saying, Todd, I think there's such a reason why more and more mental health professionals are looking to using, and not just mental health professionals, but like guidance counselors and things like that, are looking to TTRPGs as a way to work with kids and young adults around, how do you deal with bullying? How do you work with other people? How do you, just all of those things, all of those life skills that are really hard for, kids and young adults to learn, especially in a society where we're so like media and social media and, all of that. And I feel like it's such a great way to be able to step back from that, especially if you can, get them to a physical table, to be able to step back from all of that and help them really learn in a safe space how to work together, how to solve a problem, how to think outside the box. That's a huge life skill that, it can be really hard for some people to learn if they don't have the opportunity.
There's and as well, I'm sure all of us have played a character that is borderline, splitting image of ourselves, and that's another, aspect of it is you kind of maybe work through some things, of yourself as well. So.
Yeah,
Had characters that I had to quit playing because of things that have changed in my life, the person that I am, or kind of things that I'm sensitive to or going through, and I'll just have to put a character down and be like, that character's no good for me anymore. So like you said, you are absolutely working stuff out, and once you're done with that character and you realize that you've worked it out, you may not need that character anymore. You may have worked through the thing. And for sure, I was in a real dark place at the time, and he was a real dark character full of hate, and it was no good for me to play that character anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, let's see. question from Zeal Zaddy. Moving on to holidays. Do you enjoy running IRL holiday-themed sessions, and best or worst experience with them?
I haven't done it much. The most recent example I can think of was last Christmas. Our stream was doing the Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game. And it was getting to winter time. I was keeping it like similar life seasons. And so I did a Christmas game, and I did Christmas Carol with like Ebenezer, and like they went to the future and they went to the past and like did all this stuff, and like had to help this old man see the light. Otherwise, everyone was doomed to fall to chaos. And it was honestly, both of my players, Gary played. I believe Kayvon was still playing with us at the time. And they both really seemed to like it. I put on a Christmas sweater. I don't know. It's fun. It is fun. If you can fit it in, it doesn't have to be cheesy. It can fit, and it was a lot of fun.
Definitely. I love doing that sort of stuff, kind of theming around, doing one shots. I'm doing something for one of my groups for Halloween next weekend. But my best one, we did a kind of like the development team for Star Wars 5e. We did a big one shot. I had 7 players. I ran it, massive table. It was online, digital, but it was for the holidays, and I basically took the story of Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger smash hit, right? And it was Star Wars themed, so it was Jabba all the way, and we had Jabba's child, his little Hutt child, wanted rather than the Turbo Man in the show, of course, in the movie, wanted the Turbo Mandalorian. And so we did this whole, I rethemed the whole thing. So the group had to go and get the Turbo Mandalorian's armor. It was fantastic. So that was a great one. And to your point, Jahan, I think just kind of repurposing things that character or players might be familiar with, whether they recognize it or not. I think that's where that enjoyment comes from.
Yeah,
my regular crew, by the way, is 7 people. And
No
it was
way.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Sounds like a name.
Why do you think I designed my own game?
I think a resounding yes for me. I absolutely love themed sessions, holiday themed sessions. Yes, a million times yes. When we were in late high school, early 20s, when you don't need any sleep, we were all working different schedules, and so the only time we had to play D&D, I kid you not, we would set alarms and get up at 1:30 in the morning. We would drive to the local card shop because we had a friend who worked there. He would let us in, and we would play till 5 or 6 a.m. and then go back home and go to sleep so we could get up for work. It was the only time we could fit in the game. And it was the April Fools. It was April 1st, and we're groggy. No one knows what day it is. No one knows what time it is or what the date is. And the entire session, we're just getting terrorized by Taresks and purple worms, and just no matter what we do, we can't get away. And it ends up being a full party wipe. So right as the sun is rising and we're all just disappointed with this horrible session, the game master's like, oh, by the way, April Fools. And so
Oh my gosh.
it was just a waste of our sleep, a waste of our time. It is still hilarious to me to this day. What a great prank session. Absolutely. I'm all
awesome.
in. Mm-hmm.
I did a
Thanks for
one-shot.
giving me that idea.
That was
No
a good
problem.
idea. I did a one-shot for Halloween last year. I played in a one-shot for Halloween last year. I was playing a Pathfinder First Edition campaign at the time, and it was a streamed game, and some of our regular players were away that week, so we decided that we would partner up with some people from the Discount Dungeons podcast who happened to play 5th edition. And so their DM came and a couple of their players came. And so what had happened sort of for the characters from our stream that were playing Pathfinder is we had just wrapped up a session where we had literally just come from a party, and so a bunch of us had gotten really drunk, and so the way it played out in the story is that we'd all kind of passed out, and when we came to, like everything was different, but we couldn't quite figure out how until we realized that we were playing in the 5e rule set instead of the Pathfinder first edition rule set. So our characters were still the same, our classes were still the same, except for like my ranger couldn't figure out why she couldn't do a certain skill anymore or something like that. And so we had to go through and figure out this, you know, it was a kind of like scary kind of horror themed campaign, but it was on top of using a different rule set and kind of working that into the story about why it was a different rule set was really, really fun.
That sounds
Aw, that's so good.
Yeah, it was a neat idea.
Yeah, I've always wanted to play in a holiday themed one shot. Basically, for one of my home games, I've kind of reskinned a session and just covered it in snow for a day, and that was our Christmas special. But winter is my favorite season. I love the holidays, amazing vibes.
Same.
I want to play in a session where everyone turns into toys and reenacts a Nutcracker. I have a guide saved on my computer. I'm waiting for the perfect chance. Alas, college didn't schedules.
Silly college schedules.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no holiday themes for me. I'm in 2 campaigns that are they both started at almost the same time, and they're 2.5 years on right now. And we're halfway through, level 10 in both. And, you know, plus I'm also, like I said, I teach English, and, you know, there's all the other day-to-day stuff. And then I started a business, and the dog needs to be let out, you know, just all kinds of stuff.
Oh, come on, you have tons of time.
Someone has to cook dinner at some point.
Sometime, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I just don't, I think what part of what it is, though, is for me, there's just not a lot of room for one-shots.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if we're going to play, let's keep the story going that we've already started. So I work the holidays into my world because it's also a world build, you know, in the one I run. So,
yeah.
But I don't know. I think it would be fun. I've seen other people do them.
Yeah. One shots are hard to fit in when you're running a lot of games. I'm currently running 3 in 2 different systems.
Oh, wow.
And right now I'm running the new Dune game, I'm running The Expanse, and I'm running Modern Age every week. So, you know, one shots are hard to fit, but when we have guests on our Fridays, our alternating Fridays, we tend to, like, they'll run a one shot, and that's fine. As long as I don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So something I started at my school is there's a lot of us who want to play D&D but don't have the time to commit every week or even every other week. So what I started doing is I created something called the Operation One Shot Frontier, or OOF. And basically the idea is everyone keeps the same characters, and anyone from the group can run a one-shot in the sort of skeleton of a world we've created. And every time you play in one of these one-shots, you level up. And then once we don't have enough people who are over level 4 yet. I actually believe the highest is level 3 so far because we've just started this. But the idea is we're kind of creating our own little system here where we'll start having like tier 1 and tier 2 games to kind of separate those people out, just to give more people like a little chance to play and more people a chance to DM who can't really dedicate to the whole bit. So right now we've got like 12 people, so it's technically a 12-person party.
Oh my gosh.
It's fantastic.
So that's been working out really well for us, and it would be really cool to get that ironed out because it's really exciting, and it's also part of bringing it to more people, and that's really fun.
Yeah, when I did, on topic of one-shots, when I was kind of and one thing for me to just grow as a DM, because I was new in, I just dove in, as I think many of us have done, and I said, all right, I'm going to run one-shots for people, and this was with the Star Wars 5e system, and so one-shot Wednesdays was my deal, and it was something new, and I ended up doing almost 4 a month. It was every Wednesday, I was packing it in. It was the same one-shot all month, so that made it easier, but a new group of players every week, and it was just, I went so hard, and the burnout hit towards the end of the year,
Yeah,
of course, but it was so much fun, and I learned so much, and I met so many amazing players through that as well, many that I still play with. So, that was, I was doing all but one shots, nothing but one shots at that time. So
all the one shots.
Yes.
It's fun. It's chill. there's so much more chaos involved because no
Yeah.
one gets to feel the long-term consequences of their actions. A goblin gets thrown off the top of a mountain in an orb. You never know what will happen.
Yeah. Well, this looks like it might be a great time for us to pause and take a break, so we're going to do that. Firesmith, I see your question. We're going to start with yours when we come back from the break. I think it's a great segue from what we're currently talking about, so we will get to you just after the break. And during the break, if you are so inclined, we are currently raising money for Operation Supply Drop, so feel free to exclamation point charity. We'll give you the link. Feel free to check that out. There are all kinds of cool incentives for donations, and like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, for anybody who wasn't here, they work with veterans, active military, and their families, and provide all kinds of services around social connectivity, professional development, helping them transition into civilian life, and then also community service. So feel free to check that out. Also, if you have questions for our panel, feel free to drop those in chat during the break, and we will get to those just afterwards. So we will see you in just a few minutes. And we are back from our break. I hope you all had a good chance to stretch your legs and use the bathroom and let your puppy out and whatever you had to do during the break. We're going to dive right back in with our questions. So the next one that we had came from Firesmith. Firesmith, good to see you. So Firesmith wanted to know, because Firesmith actually lives like 5 minutes from me, and so he has never played a TTRPG. So his question is, are campaigns always fantasy based, or can they be whatever? I'm slowly diving into the world of Star Trek thanks to Picard, and it makes me wonder if you can do campaigns based on space exploration.
100%, yeah.
Yes.
We were talking about this. Yeah. There's so many genres and so many games.
So I also have an interesting question to you guys. What do you think is like the furthest thing from what are our extreme examples we can give of like something that is just cool in tabletops that this person doesn't know is out there? Because obviously there's a ton of sci-fi, right? But it goes so far beyond sci-fi.
Yeah. So I was going to kind of touch on it, and we mentioned this earlier with I'm one of my new systems is Savage Worlds, and I think Savage Worlds is one of those systems that it's the core base system, and then you make it whatever the hell you want. You know, if you want sci-fi, if you want fantasy, you know, Deadlands, the Weird West, which is what I'm playing, and that's such a great setting.
So good.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about that system is the flexibility there, and you know. So whatever you want, you can. If you want to do Star Trek, you could tweak it to be Star Trek. Certainly.
Yeah, you definitely can. Yeah, we just got done doing a Deadlands campaign. We did the Prepared Adventure Blood Drive. The people over at Savage Worlds were kind enough to send us. But we just recently swapped it out for the Dune game by Modifius, and Modifius also does a Star Trek TTRPG using a 2D20 system. So like you very easily could do Star Trek in Savage Worlds, but there's also a Star Trek TTRPG already ready made for you.
Yeah, same with Star Wars. I mean, Todd, you can probably speak to that.
Yep, there's lots of. I mean, you know, mine's a fan conversion for the 5th edition system. So if you know D&D 5e and you want to play Star Wars, it's easy to hop in. But there's, you know, the Fantasy Flight version, and then there's the older systems that existed, the D6, the D21, and Saga editions. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely lots out there.
If you just go back to the 70s and 80s when TSR came out with Dungeons and Dragons. They also came out with Gamma World. They came out with Boot Hill. They came out with Top Secret. They came out, excuse me, what else? Oh, Star Frontiers. Then you also had games like Recon. Anybody know Recon, the role-playing game of the Vietnam War? Mm-hmm. That Palladium actually picked that up. Torg, Twilight 2000, which was World War III. And I think today that there are probably more games covering genres like, I don't know, sort of Sims kind of things, or like, you know, like a day in the life sorts of drama kinds of things.
So there's been one that has just been at the top of my 2 playlists for like a year and a month now. And it's an indie game called Wild Sea. And I don't know if you guys have seen like Kipo in the Age of Wonder Beasts. It's on Netflix, but it's like this post-apocalyptic high fantasy world. And in Wildsea, the entire planet is overgrown by trees, and you sail boats with like chainsaw motors across the top of this vast sea on Earth thousands of years in the future. And the monsters are under the canopy. Things get more dangerous the further down you go. And so on the dark floors of the jungles are these leviathan creatures that just stomp around and basically eat you if you see them. And there's new playable races like the Selachrai are a colony of like spider folk that make up one sentient creature. There's playable cactus people. And so, like, that setting to me is just so original and so fresh and something so cool. And we're going to see stuff like that, I think, in this genre always. As long as people have imagination, they'll always imagine something new for us to play.
I have always wanted to play a game that's inspired by SCP, Secure, Contain, Protect. And so for my birthday, my friend got me a copy of the book Tales from the Flood, or Things from the Flood, one of those two things. But it's kind of the sequel to Tales from the Loop, which I saw Zealzaddy was mentioning in the chat. And it's sort of sci-fi, but it's also got that little bit of a more like earthly vibe. It's different from Star Wars and Star Trek, which feels a little bit more close to home, which I'm really vibing with. And I'm really excited. Oh yeah, I heard about the SCP TTRPG, which I would like to check out at some point. But there's so much.
There's so many.
Yeah, Tales from the Loop TV show, by the way, I mentioned this in reply to Zeal as well. It was super weird. I don't know if anybody watched that. I think it was on Amazon.
I didn't finish it. It was really good, what I saw, though.
Yeah, it was good. But it really kind of, it messes with your head and what they do on there. So.
Yeah, the people from Free League Publishing who make that game were kind enough to send us a bunch of that stuff, and we gave it a look-see. Very interesting,
cool.
To say the least. They also...
Yeah, that's like...
Yeah, they also... Oh, no, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, that's like my favorite thing in like either sci-fi or fantasy. I remember the first time I ever tried a DM, I tried to write my own one-shot straight out of the bat, even though I still barely knew how to play the game, and it accidentally... I almost invented a whole new system by accident, and it was a very surreal, dreamlike vibe. I actually think one of my players is in the chat right now. He probably remembers it, but I definitely like to find a whole system that can sort of capture that like kind of sci-fi, kind of surreal, like otherworldly, but still here on Earth kind of vibe.
So there are a lot of like neutral systems like that, like, GURPS has been around forever, and the Age system has a bunch of different versions, and of course Savage Worlds, which we keep talking about. There are all these different mods basically for those systems where you can play straight from you can go straight from Fantasy Age straight into Modern Age without having to re-roll or change anything. All of your talents and perks carry over. And same thing in Savage Worlds, where if you have a gunslinger and you think he's awesome, you can keep those talents from the Wild West book and use them in your future book if your game master okays it.
Yeah.
So those neutral systems like that are very cool.
I miss playing Savage Worlds. We don't play that one right now anymore. I miss that system. Very good. Someone in the chat said Cypher system, Monty Cook's Cypher system.
Mm-hmm.
That's another great one. But long story short, I guess, like, you can play literally. You're only bound by your imagination. Like, you can play anything. Go have an Easter egg hunt. Go, dog walking simulator. Whatever you want.
Someone mentioned, we're kind of talking TV shows. Someone mentioned the Blades in the Dark show, and there is a hack of that called, I think it's Dogs in the Bark is the name of it. And so it's Blades' whole concept, but your dogs, and you have like the clans or the, that whole, the whole guilds, I think it is, in Blades, and it just beautifully designed little system, a hack of it. So yeah, just so much out there.
And then
do whatever you want.
On top of all of those too, you have the little like 1 and 2 pager, games that are out there, like Honey Heist and Crash Pandas and all of those that don't take a whole lot of time to learn, and you can really put them in whatever setting you want, or you can kind of write a story around whatever the system is that you're using in that regard. I started this year, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I started writing a one-shot, or maybe it's a mini campaign, I don't really know, but basically taking Oregon Trail and like kind of right now I'm at the point where I'm just kind of outlining like, okay, this is what happens in the game Oregon Trail and the places that you stop and whatnot. But my plan really is to take that and put it into like the Savage World system, or something that's one of those kind of modular systems. I've played Savage Worlds using the Savage World system, but in the World of Darkness lore. So things like that are so great. Yeah, and Zeal Zaddy just pointed out itch.io is full of little systems and indie designers, and that's a great place to find so many things.
I'm playing Mothership right now that I believe is maybe on itch. Mothership's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Into the Odd, another one.
I've been seeing Mothership pop up on my Facebook feed a lot lately.
They're getting a Kickstarter here soon, so but it's fun. That's a fun one.
A question like this makes me realize that I'm sorry, who was it that asked the question?
Firesmith was the one who asked the original question. Yeah.
This is how you become a collector.
Yeah.
You start asking these questions and you're like, there's so many systems. I want that one and that one and that one. The very specific systems like Cyberpunk, any of the whole Cyberpunk line. One I worked on was called Carbon 2185, or something like Torg or anything like that. That's also just homogeneous to itself. They're just as satisfying, because somebody created that system as well, and it gives you a specific kind of feel. It's got a vibe to it. So I think looking for those systems that are modular, that give you an opportunity to build whatever you want, is just one way to enjoy the game. And this whole hobby is so full of ways to enjoy it, because we've also got art and music and all kinds of other things that we can do with it as well. So
100 different ways to make dice. Yeah.
Just get started. Yeah.
Something to that point, Ty, with multiple systems too. And this is, I think, great to tell new players, but old players as well, is something I just talked about recently with somebody else. Is when I first got into the hobby, I wasn't playing. I was just reading systems because I didn't have anybody to play with yet. And I was reading all different things. And now that's benefited me because you can pull little bits from things here and there. Blades in the Dark has the clock system, and I've used that in my 5e games, very successfully. So I think that's another thing too, is if you're getting into it, just read what other systems have to offer, and I think there's a lot you could borrow and expand on your own game.
Good point. Yeah.
I mean, the thing kind of is, TTRPGs are just kind of a way of playing pretend with a little bit more rules attached to it, so nothing's going to go wrong if you change up the rules a little bit to fit the kind of game you want to play.
Yeah. That's
good.
That's the beauty of it, though, is that the beauty of a TTRPG versus a video game, which I love video games. I love a good video game. But the beauty of a TTRPG is that you're the one who's telling the story. So if you don't like a part of it, throw it out. There's nobody saying you can't do that. If you don't like the way a mechanic works in a game, change it. If you don't like the way that, a certain rule is written, change it, get rid of it, whatever you want to do to make it fit the story that you want to tell. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, so another thing about what he's asking, I don't know if they're trying to get started or what, but if you don't want to spend any money and you just want to try something out and get role playing, there's a lot of quick starts that are free on almost any game you could think of. You can go look at their quick start and you can just jump in, play. It's got light rules, pre-made characters, and I say do it. I can't imagine my life without any of this stuff. I don't know who I would be.
For my birthday, my friends and I reenacted my favorite movie, Logan Lucky and Honey Heist, as bears, and it was so beautiful.
That's nice. Amazing. I love that. All right, let's see. I'm going to dig back. So we don't have any other questions from chat tonight, so I'm going to actually dig back to a couple weeks ago from some questions that we got then. And so this was a question that came up from a viewer, Search Monkey. And the question was, with long-time campaigns, what happens when a character dies? Since they can take weeks or months, does that friend just not get invited to hang out with you? Do you just have to hang out and watch? Do you let them create a new character right away? Do you find a MacGuffin to let them come back from the dead? What do you guys do? How have you done that? How have you handled that in the past?
I once had to sit out of Dungeons and Dragons at my own house for like 4 weeks because my character was petrified as stone, and we didn't know at what point anyone was going to unpetrify him. So for like 12 or 16 game hours, I just sat there.
Oh my gosh.
Feeble Mind is good for that too.
I almost wish that there had been a MacGuffin or a secondary character or anything I could have done to enjoy playing the game with my friends. That's just the worst case scenario, I think, is what you don't want out of D&D.
Yeah, something we do in our home games is it really depends. Like in some games, like the time I lost the character, next time I just came back with a new character because the last character story was just kind of over and it was time for somebody new. But then there's been some other times where a character died and then behind the scenes they worked with the DM for their character to come back to life but also secretly become the BBEG of that arc.
Oh.
And they had so basically anytime a character has come back as part of that, they've also kind of had a consequence or an extra challenge to overcome as a part of the story because they died. It wasn't like it was a failure, it was just another part of the story that contributed to the character overall. And it's so fun when we do that because it's like, all right, what's the catch this time?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I feel like that's just an important like DM note for like anybody. Like make things matter. Like turning instead of someone dying and being gone, you use them as the big bad evil. And that's great. That's great advice to do that. I like doing similar things. Especially there's a lot of systems nowadays that your character death can be like because they lost their moral compass. Like Avatar, the Avatar role-playing game that just dropped.
Yeah, a lot of
and they become NPCs.
What is that?
And
Powered by the Apocalypse is what those systems are, right?
Yeah,
Those
Powered by the Apocalypse does stuff like that a lot.
Instead of having the old hit point pool that we're all used to in dying, you can die just from, exceeding or not meeting your expectations, or even in some cases exceeding your expectations so many times in City of Mist that you ascend to godhood and you lose control of your character. You've got to make a new one if you do too many godhood moves,
Or my favorite, if you're too mundane, you like become a mailman. Like that's your NPC. I love that one.
So yeah, there's a lot of cool things going on. Beside character death or the traditional way, a lot of systems are taking new looks at it. Jahan, what was that? We just read a tarot. What was that tarot system called? Upriver, Downriver. Upriver, Downriver. When you die, you get ghost abilities, and you're still bound to your ship, and you're bound to your crew, and you're bound to complete the campaign adventure. But you get ghost abilities, so you can't step foot on land, and you can't pilot the ship, but you can commune with the ancestors or gain the ability to fly, things like that. So, and of course, you're insubstantial, so you don't take damage from any melee weapons, only magic. So a lot of games are looking at these cool answers so that you aren't just bored at your table.
Yeah.
Right.
You've all got me thinking here because I'm still mid-design. And so I'm a very Gygaxian sort of DM. I have that OSC tradition. And so I think in my party of 7/8, we've had 3 characters die over the course of our 10-level campaign. And it has worked into the scenario in various ways that actually, and I don't have like real easy resurrection rules or anything like that. I think that kind of cheapens the whole experience. But what it does is it sets that bar so that the players stop acting like they're invincible. And they get, because of course it's 5e, right? So a lot of my players who are my kids' age, so they're in their 20s, they come in and they're like, "What? This is so aggressive. What are you doing to my character?" And it's like, "Well, you did stupid things and you killed your character. I didn't do it." But I do bring in their backup characters almost right away. I just think that it's just too long, to go on and on and on. But in the instance of like being turned to stone or being feeble-minded or something like that, there's probably you're still going to be back, and that's the hard situation to address, because it's like, well, you're just going to have to wait it out, and then we'll.
Yeah, I'm doing so the mothership I'm playing is it's play by post, and that's already somewhat slow format. And one of the players maxed out their stress and went catatonic. So they, in play by post, actual time, like a good week or more, they're just not doing anything because the other players are fighting an alien and trying to deal with that situation. So, that was just kind of along the lines of what you said, Gary, with just sitting there. But beyond that, I haven't really had any situations of like a character death to bring them back. I'd probably do something where they just grab a new character and join up, something like that. I guess it would depend on the story, though. Certainly.
Yeah, I have two really good examples, specific examples, because you're right, it does matter, setting, story, how everything's going. One was in Dungeons and Dragons. We lost our rogue. He died in a really dumb way. He wound up. He got
to do.
He died in such a dumb way. He got smothered by a rug to death. It was funny. But so we quested for like 2 months of real life time to resurrect him. Like we did like a whole like quest line to bring him back to life. In the meantime, he got to bring in a new character, and when his other character came back, he was allowed he got to pick pretty much which one he wanted to keep. The other one, went and did Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And then most recently, I had a player die in my game, Savage Worlds. he had the terminal illness
hindrance.
Yeah. And so I made them roll to stay awake on a ride, and he critically failed, and that means he dies that session because he's sick. And I didn't know that.
The way the Savage Worlds rules are written is that if he fails a check, if he fails the con check, then he dies. But you get to reroll as long as you can reroll. But if you roll a critical failure,
you cannot reroll.
And
so he was going to die.
So we just stayed up overnight. His character was like a 65-year-old man with tuberculosis in the Wild West, and we stayed up overnight pushing cattle. And that was just too much for his heart, and he died.
I felt so
bad. Like all of us at the table were just like, ugh.
It was hard because the way it's worded is at the end of the session, by the end of the session they'll die. So you kind of get to pick how they die. And so we're all just sitting there with this dying character. And it's very sad. And when he did die, people cried a lot. There's some tears.
And it felt like a terminal illness because he didn't drop dead right now. And, he was dead by the end of the session. So we all had this, 35 minutes of knowing that he was going to die. And it was just a matter of time. And it was such a weird feeling.
It was so weird. And when he did die, I let him bring a new character in the next session. So
kudos to Savage Worlds for that design, though. It exactly.
That honestly sounds really cool.
Savage,
and a really good way to pace the story if you want to give it some good.
So
timing.
That gave us a new homebrew idea to when a character dies, maybe that character doesn't die right then, right there, just by the end of the session. That way, the game master might have a little more control over how the situation goes down, or the player might have some input as to a final thing they would like to do. On the way out of the dungeon, they can make themselves a martyr instead of just getting stabbed by a goblin. Some type of dead man walking caveat or something. I think could make the story more interesting.
Well, it also makes it too so that you don't get into a fight 5 minutes into the session, boom, somebody dies, and then they're stuck sitting there for the rest of the session. You know, or at least
Yeah,
until
that
even the fight's
happens.
over.
That happened during my first player character. My first player character death was my very first character. Of course, that was me being a new player and not knowing what I was doing and not understanding what a dragon turtle is. And I really I was a druid and I wanted to make friends with it. By poking it in the eye as a fish. I got inhaled. I died almost instantly. But the way we worked it out, I was dead, but we had a discussion afterwards that like my little mushroom chaotic self was seeding into its lungs, so now it is the shroom turtle. And it still exists out there. And
Nice.
it was really nice for them to do for me because it was my very first character death, but I still got to have a little bit of an impact.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool.
We had one in my in a Star Wars 5e game I was playing in. We had a character death, and it was cool because in his backstory, he wanted to go, like, he wrote in that he wanted to kind of go out fighting, like that was one of his things. And so it got to a point in a combat where it was kind of going that way. He was fighting off with one of his Jedi masters. So the DM already is pretty ruthless in this game, and so he laid into him. He got knocked down, and I think, you know, sometimes when a player's down, you don't go after him again, but this enemy did, you know, and so therefore instant critical hits and failures. So we had, you know, funeral pyre, and we sent him off. He came back with a new character, I think, like the next session. But just recently, we went and visited this ancient like temple area, and his old character came back as a Force ghost, which was super cool. So
That's
he got
awesome.
to do that a little bit later on, like weeks and weeks and weeks later. So that was a really cool way to bring somebody back in as well after their death.
I have to give my players credit for dragging the bodies over miles and mountains and oceans and swamps. It came to one point where they went to a druid grove, and they were like, this would be a nice place to land to rest. And they're like, okay, let's just do that. And it was like a 50-50 split, and they couldn't make up their minds, and they finally decided not to do it. And so they dragged them further. And I ended up working it out to where one of them resurrected and came back to the party, and it turned out to be thematically really awesome. And then one resurrected later because that magic, which we call crit in our world, was starting to become known, but that player didn't join the party. They became an NPC who became an advisor to another character that ended up retiring into a leadership role just recently. So they retired together, and I don't know, the players seemed amazed the whole process. So that's what's important. The outcome, the end game for everyone is.
Yeah.
Speaking of character deaths, Warhammer has a really cool system in place. When you make your character, and if you're a human, I think specifically, you can have like dark visions or something where if you can guess how your character is going to die, and you do die that way, then you get like half your experience for your next character.
Oh, wow.
And it's really fun.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
So on top of that, in the same system, that's Warhammer 4th edition. When you're building your character, you can roll to build stuff, and if you do, you get bonus XP to spend on skills and stuff. It's not just like you can roll to build. It's like, oh yeah, if you roll to build, then you are rewarded for rolling to build. You get extra stats, you get extra experience, extra skills.
For playing random, yeah.
And then so that was part of that fun, was getting a random character assigned to me, and I was just a beggar, a poor beggar in the streets was the class I rolled. No witch hunter, no sword, no magic, and of course, it's the system is just, it's a great system. I don't want to spoil anything else for you. Warhammer 4th edition's very good. The mutations are very good. The deaths are very good.
Awesome.
So the thing about deaths and kind of using alternative systems where you might not actually die is, I feel like one thing that makes them extra effective is that it might not happen all the time. So it's maybe like a 50-50 split of if you let a character kind of do that gambit of like having a consequence and bringing them back or not. or just working with the player and keeping the rest of the party on edge for are they alive? Are they not alive? I feel like if it's 100% success rate that you're going to come back with some consequences, it kind of dampens the effect a little bit. So I feel like if it's a decision that happens behind closed doors between that one player and the DM, for the rest of the party, it makes the whole thing much more intense, but also a lot more exciting.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we got a question from Incompetent User. And I'm going to squish this one with a question from Jim the Dim, but apparently I have to answer it first if this is the case. The question Incompetent User has is, what is a TTRPG you haven't played that would like to? And Jim then also asked, which game has been on your list the longest? So I don't know why I'm supposed to answer this first. I guess the longest, I would say, and one that I haven't played that I would like to, I would really like to try Shadowrun. I've never tried it, but I know a lot of people that enjoy it. The one that's been on my list the longest that I've never done is probably Shadowrun. But part of that is because when I first started playing TTRPGs, I literally knew nothing but D&D, because I started playing, and that's what everybody I knew, that's what they played. And, you know, we weren't quite at the phase of being on the internet all the time. I didn't have a smartphone. Smartphones weren't a thing yet when I started playing, so I had no exposure to anything else, and D&D was the only one I'd ever heard of. So it wasn't until just a few years ago that I really started like, oh, this is a thing. Oh, this is a thing. Oh my God, there's so many things out there. So yeah, I probably Shadowrun. It sort of piques my curiosity, and it's very different than I tend to play very high fantasy stuff, and Shadowrun would be a very vast departure from that.
Shadowrun's fun. I play Shadowrun. It's a good one. Cyberpunk also has a similar vibe, minus the magic and fantasy creatures. I really like Shadowrun.
I've always wanted to play Pathfinder and Vampire Masquerade or Vampire Lost Ages or Dark, whatever. I wanted to play Vampire and Pathfinder
Too.
I finally got Pathfinder 2nd edition. I own the book, and like I told you guys, I'm going on a road trip soon, and so I'm going to take the book. It's going to be my source of entertainment while I'm out of town. I'm going to read all over the Pathfinder book forward and backwards for no reason, because I don't have a game coming up. But I like big, crunchy systems where you can stack talents and feats and do all of these cool things with your character and go down different trees and paths, and that system seems to have a lot of options. So I'm drawn to games like that and narrative games.
On my list for a long time is Fate. I don't know a lot about it. I've heard so many good things. Fate just sounds really good, and I really want to play.
It's a lot of fun.
Is it?
Yeah.
I would love
And
to play
Fate
Fate.
dice are so cute.
Fate is actually it's the game that I had already played Savage Worlds once. I liked it, but I was still playing D&D. Then I played Fate, and like I woke up the next day and was like, well, I don't want to play D&D anymore. Like I just want to play Fate. Like that's it. It's a storytelling game, and you pick what skills you want. You do the thing that you want your character to do. That's what you're good at, and that's what you do.
But not from a list too, which is I think the big point. You make that stuff up, which is super cool about a system like that.
You just write it down. We did it. We wrote it down on index cards on a table. Like, you know, there's no character sheet. There was no heavy book. And from someone who likes crunchy systems, I know it's funny to say, but it's the exact opposite, right? You just pick what you want. It's narrative, and your character does the thing that they should be good at. I loved Fate, and it totally changed the way that I thought about tabletop role-playing games.
I'd say the game, the other system I've wanted to try the longest is something called Ninja Burger, because the one time I found it in my brother's room, and I didn't know what it was until I started playing Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm searching my brain, and I'm like, oh my god, that's what that strange book in my brother's room was. But have you guys heard of it?
No, but I'm intrigued already.
It
Very
is like a
intriguing.
reverse heist. You are ninjas. You have to deliver burgers. But these delivery locations are in very inopportune places. Like, I think one of the sample adventures is a skyscraper is being like held hostage by terrorists, and a CEO at the top decided this is a bad day. I deserve a burger, and buys a burger from Ninja Burger. And so there's this stuff like all of you are different types of ninjas, and there's other competing like fast food chains. And it just
So it's
seems like
basically
such
Uber
a
Eats.
fun. Yeah, it's Uber. It's Uber. It is Uber Eats intensified. I've always wanted to play this thing. It sounds so chaotic. It's a
sounds a lot of
reverse
fun.
heist, and heist movies are my favorite. Good gosh.
Yeah, that's a great concept. I like that. That's
We're,
funny.
we're gonna
It's-
have to go over
The
that
game
one. On this
is
show.
the game is literally called Ninja Burger, and if you look it up, I think it's like $7.
I have to grab it. Yeah.
I think Eclipse
Definitely not
Phase.
doing a search for it right now.
All of
Eclipse
us
Phase is on
paused.
my list because it seems to fit into a genre science or a subgenre of science fiction that I'm really interested in real life, which is the transhumanism experience, which is, you know, the next evolution of humanity where we integrate with technology and become something other than what we are. That, and then Absolute Tabletop has a game that's in beta and has been in beta for a very long time called Harbinger, which is a space opera horror, which is, I played the beta to death and it's phenomenal. And I can't wait for them to get it finally put together and stuck out there in the world.
Very nice.
I don't know anything about that.
Mine, I think the one on my list is it's a Into the Odd hack called Mouse Ritter. I think I mentioned it earlier. Adorable little game, heavily influenced by like Redwall and Mouse Guard, things like that. And it uses Into the Odd very well. Definitely an old school style system. And yeah, you're just a mouse character and you go dungeon diving. So there's actually, we were talking about the holiday themed sessions earlier, and there is someone made a Christmas themed one where you have your little mice up at the North Pole, and there's a cat. I think the cat, something Bierschnickel is the cat, and you have to survive from the cat trying to get after you, and it just sounds like a blast. So that's probably the biggest one on my list to check out, definitely.
Wait, what's the name of this again?
So this Mouse Ritter, Mausritter, and it's based on Into the Odd. I'll definitely throw some
that. I love
throw
the
some
sound
info
of
in
that
our
so
in our
much.
chat later. But yeah,
Who
it's
makes
a
Into
blast.
the Odd?
Into the Odd is Bastion Land, or Bastion Land is the other half of that.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, Chris McDowell is Into the Odd. Bastion Land is like a sequel to that, is what I'm thinking of. But yeah, there's remastered. You just did a Kickstarter, which is closed, but that's coming out soon. And that's Into the Odds. Is a super cool system, real light and pretty fast. Another one that you could probably easily adapt with some adjustments to, you know, any other setting if you wanted. So
Yeah, y'all are giving us so many. I'm taking so many notes because
Yeah, I have
this,
a list.
this is what me and Gary do on our channel. We like to go over games that aren't D&D. And try to expose people to as much. Like, I'm wearing a D&D shirt right now. Like, I love D&D, but learning that there was other stuff out there. My first non-D&D game was World of Darkness, and that opened like my whole world. You know, I was still young, and we want to play them all. So
I think
Yeah, like
carrying
you're-
on D like cola, and probably like many people think of craft beer, but I don't drink alcohol. But you know, this D&D was great. It's like Coke. You know, you got your D&D, Coca-Cola is great, but then you try Pepsi, you try a Dr. Pepper. There's all these different types of colas. You see a silly cola at a store that, you know, they make their own brand of cola. You try that one too. You just have to try all the colas, right? I don't want to just drink Coke every day the rest of my life.
even the Jones Cola Turkey Dinner series.
So Jahan and I, we've already played like 4 or 5 different campaigns. We do like 20 episode campaigns, or 15 to 20, 30. and just try to get as many systems out and pumped out and shown off as we can. So you guys are giving us hot fire to work with.
This makes me think of something that Misha said earlier, like right off the bat, talking about being nervous about getting into the game and all the cool kids were playing it. I think there's such a huge audience of people that feel like that right now. And what blows my mind is D&D is that gateway game. Mm-hmm. And there are so many other games for them to discover. Like, I mean, it gives me hope that the genre will never suffer the downturn that it did for so long, and that we're going to keep going on this, escalation.
One of the things that's so strange to me, Ty, is that, like you said, there's so many. D&D's the gateway game, but it's not the easiest game.
No, it's really not.
By far from the easiest game.
It's all about accessibility, It's
exactly right. It's a household name, and you can find the supplements and the products everywhere, and their websites are easy to access, and everyone wants to give it a shot. But there are games that are there are all sorts of different games. There are games where you roll less dice. There are games where you use more imagination, and there are all sorts of things. Dungeons & Dragons is such a weird one, because to me, now, seeing all these different systems, it is actually on the complicated side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 5e.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
the easy one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, at college, we got a big group of people into playing D&D because we played one game of Honey Heist.
There you go.
Last year, and then they're like, "This is what role playing's all about. Can we join your D&D thing?"
Yeah, we need more.
And this is all why I say it a lot, and I will continue to say it a lot, is like, if you try D&D and D&D isn't your thing, that's okay, because there probably is a TTRPG that will be your thing. Like, like we said, there's so many out there, and, it doesn't have to be this super complicated system. It can be something like Honey Heist or the Quest RPG. If you haven't tried that one, super recommend it. That's a really great, easy one to get into. You need a D20 and that's it. And, there's so many out there that can help you tell the story that you want, that I think if you haven't found one that you like yet, just don't give up on it. Try different systems and play with different people, and, you'll...
Fiasco's another one on my list too, I think, and that's definitely a heavy narrative. And Gary, touching on what you said earlier about you played, you like Crunchy, but you went to Fate, I think it was, and I had that moment too with a different game. I was playing 5e, and I played something else, and I'm like, okay, I'm a narrative DM, I'm a narrative player. That's what I want. That's my style. I don't mind the crunch, but I definitely have a different style that I prefer. So, and that's, to your point, Luna, there's so much out there. You just gotta look for it.
Yeah.
Luna, you said that keep looking for games, keep checking different tables. I think that's so important. Play with different people. I'm a player. I'm not a game master. I love to play, but I've introduced people to Dungeons and Dragons, and so I've been dungeon master and game master before to get the party going and get everybody on board. But some of those same people who I played with, years later, same friends, same people, new characters, new setting, new campaign, I started to get anxiety all the time around some of those people, and I was not enjoying the game that I had always enjoyed with the people who I had always enjoyed it with. For some reason, it was stressing me out, and I was having physiological symptoms. And so it really is, maybe go to a different table. You could love the game and you could even love the people, but maybe the table you're at is just not a right fit.
Yep.
Yep. I've left games before because various reasons, whatever that is. I think that's a whole nother topic. You could beat to death of if you're not having fun, even as a GM, a DM. If you're not having fun as a GM, maybe you just need to put it to bed. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Too. You have to. I think sometimes there's a expectation that you run this thing into the ground, like to completion, and it doesn't need to be that at all.
We also have to recognize that the thing that we call bleed, the emotional response in the game, sometimes that lingers, and it's not good to stay in that situation for someone. because they can't get over that emotional response to, that's not how I would do this thing. That's not how my character would do this thing. And it doesn't feel right to be in an environment where the rest of you would.
Right.
And I've had players that had to step away because they didn't like the murder hoboism or the, something.
Those can be dear friends that you've known for years, and everyone at the table could be, friends and family, and the characters are just a bad fit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't dislike the person, you don't have to break up your friendship. It's just, hey, maybe we'll catch you on the next campaign. When we switch settings, we switch worlds, and, we'll see.
Yep.
Not every adventure is for everybody, and that's okay.
And until you're in the moment, you don't start realizing how, like, even though you guys are kind of making things up and role playing, how real it can feel sometimes. And that's why it's important to kind of keep things in check and kind of understand how you're feeling and where you are compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
Because it can feel really real.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Well,
no denying there's an aspect of each of us. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. But unfortunately, we are just about out of time. So we need to wrap it up. And if we didn't get to your question, I am very sorry. We did have a couple of questions come in at the last minute, and so we didn't have time to get to all of them, but we came really close this time. And so what I would like to do is we'll go around again, this time in the reverse order, and just remind everybody of who you are and where we can find you on social media. And if you have anything going on that you would like to share, podcast streams, anything like that, feel free to let us know. So like I said, we'll go in the reverse order. So Todd, we're going to start with you this time.
All right, and thanks again to you, Luna, for hosting. This was great chat with everybody. Todd Moonbounce here, at Todd Moonbounce on the internets, Twitter and Twitch, where I stream my games. And as I mentioned, top of the show, I am one half of the Dungeon Jedi Masters, a podcast and more for the Star Wars 5th edition fan conversion, dungeonjedimasters.com. And one thing to mention about that, coming out November 4th, we'll be premiering our second series of a narrative podcast. So it is basically a game of D&D Star Wars 5e that we play, but I cut out all the mechanical aspect of it and leave only the narrative, only the RP, add in a little ambience and sound effects, so it gets back to some of those old radio show styles. So the dice still tell the story. We're not scripting this, but with cutting out those dice rolls, it creates a really cool experience. So that'll be out on our podcast, which you can find via dungeonjedimasters.com on November 4th. So, and again, thanks for all you in chat hanging out with us and everyone else on the panel.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much, and I'm definitely going to add your podcast to my list of podcasts now that I'm getting close to catching up on the one that I'm listening to. So thank you for coming on and hanging out.
Absolutely.
Jahan, let's go to you next.
I'm Johananon at RockFact on Twitter. I'm one half of Fresh Out the Box. We cover everything TTRPG on our channel. You can catch us Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday, 7 o'clock Central Standard till 10. Thursday, Friday at 8 to 11. We have a YouTube, Fresh Out the Box. You can follow us, Fresh Out the Box, on Facebook. We're on twitch.tv/Johananon. We're also brand ambassadors for Green Ronin Publishing. Check them out. You can use our code greenroninstore.com/freshoutthebox to get 5% off your order and help us out at the same time. And we also have a podcast, Fresh Out the Podcast, on Spotify, Apple Music, I believe now Google as well, where we talk about all things nerd, movies, pop culture, all of that good stuff. And also, I had a blast on this show. A lot of fun. Great meeting all of you. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It was great to get to meet you. I always say it's really nice to get to put a face to the Twitter handle, because I don't get to do that otherwise, except for when I'm on shows like this. So thank you for coming on and hanging out and chatting. Ty, we'll go to you next.
You're also well spoken, and it is nice to be here and to participate with everyone. I am on Twitter at Dungeon Mr. Ty and at Adventure Slang. Both are my Twitter accounts. Adventure Slang is our indie company. We are producing a new system for spring launch. We are also doing a quick start launch and open playtest in December prior to the campaign. So start to get some people checking it out, giving us some feedback. Awesome. Yeah, please come aboard. I have a Discord. I think it might be in the visuals. But if you can contact me at Twitter, you can get the Discord invite. The website's in development right now, so come find us on Discord and join our community, where we also curate what's going on in the TTRPG world and just build community and help people find other gamers and games for themselves. So it's really mutual support and helping each other get going with your own gaming experience. And again, really glad to meet everyone and to be part of the chat tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on and hanging out. This has been a lot of fun to get to know you a little bit, so thank you. Gary.
Casualty CDG, I'm the other half of Fresh Out the Box. I just wanted to reiterate, that's every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we have that podcast that comes out every Sunday. We talk about, like, streaming TV shows like Ted Lasso and Wu-Tang and American Saga. We just watched Dune, so we did, like, a huge Dune episode yesterday. Right now on Wednesdays, we're playing Dune, tabletop role-playing game by Modifius. On Thursdays, we're playing The Expanse by Green Ronin. And on Fridays, we're doing indie games, board games. We just want small creators to reach out. We're reaching out to small creators. We want to show whatever you're making. We want to play whatever you're making. That's our mission, right? Is we want to play all these big box games and show you, and we want to play all the indie games and show you. So indie guys, reach out to us. You can find me at Casualty CDG on Twitter and all Fresh Out the Box everywhere else, Facebook and all of that good stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you very much. This has been awesome. Misha.
Yeah, so hi once again. Well, bye now. I'm Misha, and I'm from Dice Carnival. We are on our 18th episode of Electroball, which is kind of like our steampunk, Tesla punk kind of mystery thing, and our 5th episode of Witchlight. In one of them, I got majorly vibe checked, and in the other one, I did some major vibe checking. So it's up to you guys to figure out which one is which. Overall, you can find any of our Dice Carnival links in our link tree, and feel free to hit me up on Twitter. That's just my personal Twitter. I love making friends, and I'd love to meet more people in this fantastic community because I'm still extremely new. It's been wonderful to meet you all, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and hanging out tonight. Thank you all so much. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I always know that when we have questions left over at the end, that we probably did something right. So thank you all again. And I am Gamer Mom Luna. This has been Tales from the Tavern. We're here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we are the epic talk show that takes all of our questions from chat. So come back again next Sunday if you're free. We'd love to have you. We'll have a whole new group of people because it is Halloween. I believe we're dressing up in costume next week, so that should be a lot of fun. We'll have Reed joining us from the Games Tavern, who is our partner in this fundraiser, and lots of other really fun guests as well. So, with that said, we're going to go raid. I just recently was made part of the And Chill Network Twitch team, which is run by my good friends Turtles and Chill. So we're going to go over to Turtles and Chill. If you don't know Turtles and Chill, they're a 24-hour turtle and fish tank stream. And they just play like lo-fi music, and they are super fun and a great way to wind down on a Sunday night. So I will send us over there. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and we will catch you all next week. Thanks so much. That was great. Thank you all so
Good
much.
stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.